Hey everyone, in this video, I'm going to tell you everything that you need to know about how Palladio extends and goes above and beyond what your traditional homegrown email templates allow you to do. Before I get into how Palladio does it, I want to talk about the problem. So the problem is that the way that email templates work with your email platform is that the template itself is content that wraps around the dynamic part, which is the email itself. So if you're sending out a weekly newsletter, the email template itself is static. And usually that's your logo at the top. That's, in this case, this little newsletter title called Plants and Pots. That's the subheadline. That's the footer. All of this stuff that I'm highlighting now isn't going to change week to week because this is part of your email template. What does change is the email content, which you add into the template. So this is, again, how 99% of email templates out there that are loaded into email platforms operate. The email template is static. It's created once, and then the content within it changes from email to email. And this is very akin to how things work with content management platforms, for instance, on like say WordPress, where you have the theme, which wraps everything, and then you have the article or the page or whatever else, which is the content that changes from page to page or blog post to blog post. So what we've done in Palladio is we've added something called slots. So what slots are they give you the ability to define areas in your template that can change from email to email. So I want to explain, before I get into showing you how it would work, I want to explain why you might want to do this. So imagine that this is your Plants and Pots weekly newsletter, and you have your logo at the top, you have the title of the newsletter, and then you have this subheadline, and then you have the footer. And remember, everything I just mentioned is going to be static because that's part of the email template that your newsletter uses. Now imagine that you want to change the subheadline here that says "for your home" on a weekly basis. Maybe you want to change the background image also on a weekly basis. Or you want to change the logo, and maybe not change the logo, but maybe you want to occasionally have sponsored editions where you want to have a little call out like, hey, we're hiring, or something like that you'd like to include below the logo. But that may or may not be a part of every email. So maybe some newsletters are normal and other newsletters are sponsored, and those sponsored ones should have a sponsor logo. How would you do that with a normal email template? Well, truthfully, the only way you could do that would be to copy and clone your email template every time you go to use it, which is not ideal. So what we've done with Palladio is we've added what are called slots. And I'm going to show you in this quick video how to set up slots. So I'm going to start with a basic template. So I'm in Palladio now. I'm just in the a blank dashboard, or the dashboard of a blank workspace. And I'm going to go and I'm going to add the basic template to my account. And here I am. So this part here, which is the typographic sample area right here with this lorem ipsum, this is the contents down here. This is the content area that will, when you go to set up an email, say in ConvertKit, and write the email, that content is going to go in here. The header and the footer are going to stay the same. And there's no difference in this template between what we have in ConvertKit here with what we have in Palladio until I add slots. So I'm going to add some slots. I'm going to think about, maybe I want to have a area at the top, maybe this area here, where we're going to have a background color that's blue, and we're going to put some text in it. And that is, this is my newsletter. This is my subheadline, or something like that. And let's center this content. I'm not going to worry about formatting or anything or making it all that pretty. I'll add a little formatting just so we do something. Okay, so we have this. And then we want to also have maybe something under the logo, like a sponsor call out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add under the logo, sponsored by XYZ. So what I want ideally is to be able to have this sponsored by XYZ change, or potentially not even show. And then I want to have the this headline here. Maybe I want the top part to be static. So this is my newsletter, should always say that. but the subheadline should be dynamic. So how we're going to do that now in Palladio is I'm going to go over to the slots tab and I'm going to create a few slots. So I'm going to have a slot called sponsor text. So the way that slots are defined is there's 3 components to a slot. There's the name. So this is kind of the internal name that you'll use. No one ever sees it besides yourself. There's the kind of content it is. So string, like simple text, formatted text, images, or repeaters. I'll get into repeaters in a different video. It's a little more in depth. And then you have the default value should you want to have one. So I'm not going to have any default value here. We're going to leave it blank. So this is just going to be plain text, very simple, and that's it. And then I'm going to do the same thing for my subheadline. So subheadline is also string, and we'll have a default of this is my subheadline for newsletter. So now I have these 2 slots, and how I'm going to use these are, you'll notice here that I have sponsor text with a capital T, and then the variable or the slot name of subheadline. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my header here, and where this is my subheadline right now is hard-coded, I'm going to add a little liquid. So this is going to end up eventually, I'm going to add to Palladio the ability for this to be auto-completed for you, so you don't need to worry about the bracket, bracket, subheadline, and bracket, bracket. But for now, you'll just enter in what you see here, which is going to embed or include that slot called subheadline that we've defined. So that's all good and well. And then up here where we have the sponsored by, we're going to actually make that a show if. So what I'm going to do, dragging this, there we go. I'm going to put this in here. I'm going to get rid of this text. I'm going to get rid of my, let's not have any padding. There we go. Actually, we'll have some padding on the left so it's a little more flush with the logo. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to say that if the sponsor text is set, so basically what we're saying is if I have sponsor text, we're then going to put in here sponsor text. So this is going to be blank for now because we don't have a default value. Let me actually just put a default value for now. So we love our sponsor convert kit, just so we can see something. Okay, so there we go. So what we're saying is this is our template. This part here is the email bit that is changing from email to email. But above it, this little hero, this headline area, the subheadline is going to be dynamic. And it's going to be changing from email to email. And then we're going to have a conditional around this sponsor text here. So if we don't have sponsor text set, then nothing will show. It'll just show our logo. But if we do, it'll say whatever sponsor text we include. And that's all we need to do. And so what's happening when I export this and bring it into ConvertKit, it's going to create all the Liquid code that I need to make this happen. So if you're not familiar with Liquid, you're not a coder, you can see I haven't really written any code here at all, but it's going to handle all the code writing for me, which is what you need to do if you want to have dynamic email templates. So to add it to ConvertKit, I'm going to click Add to ConvertKit. I don't need to, if you're not a coder, don't worry about the stuff at the bottom. This is the code that Palladio has generated. I'm just going to click the copy template HTML to my clipboard button. Now this is going to walk me through, since I use ConvertKit, step by step how to add this to my ConvertKit account. But since I know how to do that already, I'm going to just do that real quick. So I'm going to call this plants and pots dynamic. And I'm just going to paste this in and click save. Okay. So now if I go and create a new broadcast that is going to use that new plants and pots template. So let's find that. There we are. Now you see that if I preview this, it doesn't have the sponsor text or it doesn't have the subheadline. So the reason for that, well, let me add some content. So here is some content. I probably should have added a little more margin, which I could do in Palladio to add a little more spacing between the default text and so on. Let me just mark this succinct. So again, this isn't a design video. So here's my email where we have the little banner and the content. But again, you'll see that there's no content there, or there's no subheadline, or there's no sponsor. So what we're going to do is to use these slots. So let's say I'm writing a new email to my list. So I'm going to go into ConvertKit. I'm going to do exactly what I just did. I'm going to create a new broadcast. I'm going to choose the template here, which is my plants and pots dynamic. And let's just blank it out. So there we go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click use an email. So what use an email is going to do is it's going to let me specify the sponsor text and the subheadline every time I want to send an email. So I'll go into Palladio in this case and click use an email anytime I want to send an email with this template. And what it's going to do is it's going to write all this code for me. So let's do that. Let's say our sponsor, thank you, YouTube, for sponsoring. And then introductory edition or something. Hope you enjoy. Cool. So if we click next, here's what it's going to look like. So we have a little thank you, YouTube, for sponsoring under the logo, and then the introductory edition here. And then all I need to do is click this blue button. It's going to put it on my clipboard. This text that I just need to now verbatim paste directly into ConvertKit. Now I can start writing my weekly content. Thanks for joining. This is my first edition. I'm going to upload some pictures, maybe put a full bullet list, whatever I want to do. Now when I preview, you're going to see that we have thank you, YouTube, for sponsoring. We have the introductory edition subheadline here, and then we have my normal content. So again, what we've done here is we've created a template that if you don't do anything, if you just go and write content, so I'm going to get rid of this liquid stuff that Palladio gave me. If I just write content, it's just going to have no subheadline and no sponsor stuff. But if I use that use an email tool and use that and copy it to my clipboard and then just paste in what it gives me, it's going to create these liquid variables, which are technically how a email template becomes dynamic. So now what I've done is I've enabled it. So we now have a sponsor under a logo and then a subheadline. Now let's say this email I don't want to sponsor. All I need to do here is just where it says capture sponsor text, just delete this line. Now I click preview. Now there's no sponsored text at all. So that's what is so powerful about slots with Palladio. Now there's so many uses for slots with email templates. Now I use them for things like if I want to give a blog URL for the article that I'm sending my email list, let's say a permalink thing, then what I'll do is I'll have the article URL or blog URL as a slot. And then if that's there, up to the right of the logo, it'll have a little button that says read this on my website. They click there, they can go read it on my website. Likewise, you can do things like, let's say you want to have a specific product call out. You could have a slot that says like, featured call to action or something. And then if that slot's defined, maybe you put at the end of your normal email, it'll automatically spit out whatever content you put in that featured call to action. So maybe it's a promotion for a podcast episode you were on or a product or whatever else. So there's so many interesting things you can do. And the thing that's best about this is that there's consistency. So the email template itself is structured statically. So it's not we don't need to worry about brittle copying, pasting, or anything like that. All we need to do is say, here's the general way that I send newsletters. And these are the areas that I'm going to make potentially dynamic: newsletter call out or sponsor call outs, featured stuff, permalinks to your blog post, whatever. And then Palladio handles the rest by, again, writing a lot of underlying code on your behalf that ConvertKit uses happily to make your email template that you created with Palladio dynamic. So that's how Palladio templates, email templates, go above and beyond what you're going to get with your standard, bog standard email templates that you'll get out of your email platform. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, just let me know in the comments. And yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what you do with these slot enabled newsletters.